Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I have a very special guest with me. He is based out of New York City. He's a singer, songwriter, music producer, and audio engineer. With over 10,000 followers, he gives tips and tricks on how to get the best quality of sound for independent artists. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel, Charles Marduk.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here.
Alrighty. So, Charles, you have made a career over the last 10 years with creating music. I know you started your music journey when you were younger, playing different instruments. What made you really take it on to the next level and saying, let me start a career out of this?
It kind of progressed over time. I started out just kind of sharing my own songs, and just kind of releasing it for fun. Then started, kind of helping other people doing production work and things like that. And over time, I kind of fell in love with some of the more technical aspects of music. And so it just kind of blossomed from there.
Now, I know you spent time in Louisiana and you are based out of New York. You went to Louisiana for college. When you think of the two biggest, places for music, you think Louisiana jazz, you think New York City. How did you take both those genres of music or kind of the rhythm of both those cities and combine it and make it your own?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think I definitely was, like you said, very inspired by jazz from my time in New Orleans, and basically kind of fell in love with the rhythms of it and the, different musical elements that came from it. And then when I moved, back to New York, I kind of always been a huge fan of hip hop, and I feel like hip hop is such a genre that kind of takes a little bit of this and takes a little bit of that and combines it together in almost like a gumbo, sort of, bring it back to that New Orleans culture. So. I think I was able to take some of the melodic elements of, kind of like Southern hip hop and combine it with some of the more, rhythmic elements of kind of New York boom bap, and also combine it with other genres that I grew up loving, like alternative rock and pop music, and kind of bring it all together to create my own unique sound.
Now, you work for the most part as an independent artist. Can you just describe people what is an independent artist?
Just somebody who's not signed to a label, who's kind of, doing their own thing, kind of making their own way, and doing things without the support of a traditional label system.
Now, with being an independent artist, do you feel less restricted? Because I know when you get signed to a record label, you're kind of underneath their thumb. It's a certain amount of music they want, a sound they want. Do you feel less pressure having that?
Yeah, definitely. In terms of the kind of music that I want to put out, when I want to put it out, how I want to go about it. Definitely, I feel like there's a lot more freedom in that.
As your career progressed, do you see yourself signing or you are in love with the independent journey so far?
I like doing things independently. I think, if an opportunity were to present itself, who knows? But I like kind of doing my own thing. I like, helping other artists. And yeah, I think I'm pretty keen to stick with the independent route for the time being.
Okay, now speaking of helping others, a part of your page or part of your career is helping other artists get to where they want to get that quality music that they want. How did that become? Because thing is to learn it and how to do it for yourself, but it takes a certain level of mastering to be able to teach somebody else how to do it.
Yeah, that's a great question. It kind of started out naturally, just collaborating people and, falling in love with the process of just helping them kind of fill in the gaps of their knowledge in terms of things that they were struggling with. Also, being an independent artist, like I said, I don't have, the financial backing of a big label. So helping others to kind of level up their career and provide like mixing and mastering services, that helps me also fund my own career. So it kind of went hand in hand where, I just like helping artists, and it also kind of helps me get better and be able to release my own music independently as well.
How important is networking to your line of work?
Very important in terms of networking online, make sure you have a good online presence. Also, getting out and going to events and meeting people in person, I think is definitely very important because you need to be able to support each other and find like-minded people who can help you on your journey, and so you can't, do that all on your own.
Now let's get more into music. A lot of times when you hear new artists coming up, or just artists in general, it's always I'm a singer-songwriter, singer-songwriter, singer-songwriter. How important as your music career starts to develop that you become a singer-songwriter producer and get the quality and sound of music that you want?
I think that's a great question. I think it all depends on like what your goals are. So some people just like they just want to write songs. I think that's great. But I think if you're, going to really make a career out of it and you're going to um, take that sound to the next level and differentiate yourself from everybody out there, it helps to really dive into the production and the more technical aspects of it. So you know your way around the studio, even if that isn't necessarily like your goal to be a producer, just having that knowledge can really help you achieve the sound that you're going for.
What led you to creating beats for not only yourself but other artists? Because a lot of times, like I think of Blink 182, Travis, the drummer, he'll lay drum sets for a song and then pass it on, and it gets passed on and passed on, and then eventually you get a beat. But you do the whole entire thing. How did you come about that?
It's actually a funny story. So I started out like originally like playing guitar and playing piano, and I wanted to write my own songs, but I always kind of struggled to be able to play an instrument and sing at the same time with something I would practice, and I was, just really bad at, and I couldn't get a handle of it. So what I would do is I learned how to use GarageBand to program drums so that I could like lay down the guitar chords or the piano, and then I could sing on top of that. And that kind of just blossomed into me like trying to figure out different drum patterns and trying to make it a little bit more unique. And then I got into, Logic Pro. And from there, that's how I kind of got into beat making and felt, started producing more. And so when I, started collaborating more with people, that was kind of a skill set that I brought to the table and I was able to kind of, take it from there.
In the music industry, how important is it to be diverse? Because a lot of times you see, well, I'm just a singer, I'm a great singer, and I can sing a song or I can write this song. How important is it to have kind of the full package?
I think it's very important, especially in this day and age, because there's so many people making music. So, if you're just a singer and a songwriter, that's great, but there's so many singer-songwriters out there that I feel like it could be very difficult. You really have to get to that very top 1% if you really want to stand out and really want to make a career out of it. But if you're able to kind of like learn different skills, it becomes a little bit easier to differentiate yourself because maybe if you're not the best singer and the songwriter in the world, but you can do all these different things and you can kind of create your own approach to it. I think that is like a great way to stand out in this day and age with so many people making music and wanting to be, musicians full time.
Now, you talked about GarageBand being one of the first tools you kind of use to help yourself in producing and mixing instruments together. What other tools did you use when you first started out?
When I first started, so yeah, I started on GarageBand and then I got really into Logic Pro. So that was really where I learned really how to get more into the nitty-gritty of making beats. And then more recently, I've kind of switched to Ableton. So I kind of in today I switch back and forth between I usually make beats in Ableton and then I'll kind of go back to Logic Pro to mix and do that kind of stuff because that's where I got familiar with it. And it's just kind of I like some of the plugins that they have for mixing, and then on top of that, I also use the Pro Tools sometimes for just recording vocals and stuff like that. So those are the main tools that I use in order to make music.
Now, I've interviewed other artists before, and one of the words that always come up is my team or my team this and my team that. How many people does it usually take to create one song?
That's a good question. I would say you can do it with just like one or two. I say you would need at least, an artist, a vocalist, a producer, an engineer, and somebody to help you market it. Now, how many people, like I do a little bit of everything. I help with, the production, the engineering, and the marketing side of it. So I think you can definitely get a quality record with just a couple people, but I think you definitely need at least somebody handling each aspect of that for sure.
When you think of when you say marketing, I think of an artist, Justin Bieber, and how he kind of got his start with posting YouTube videos, and that was kind of new at the time, but now it's become so common. So, what are other ways that artists can market their music, especially being an independent artist, and you don't have that backing, you don't have that connection to the DJs as much?
I think just kind of figuring out where your ideal audience is, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's on TikTok, Facebook. There's so many platforms out there, and there's, new platforms coming up every day. So just kind of figuring out. I've heard of, artists that struggle to gain traction on Instagram, but then they, post on Facebook or they post on, whatever the new app is, and they're able to kind of grow a fan base there. And I think just figuring out like a unique kind of approach to content is really important because yeah, if you're just putting out like, covers and songs, which is great, you might get kind of lost in the algorithm and not be able to really reach that ideal audience. But if you're sharing your story and coming up with unique content ideas, it makes it a little bit easier for people to remember, like, oh yeah, there's that guy that, for example, I share a lot of tips of how to level up your sound because that's, something that people want to know about. And so I've been able to kind of carve out a niche for myself doing that. So I think definitely just finding a unique approach that's still like authentic to you and will help you kind of connect with those people that you're looking to connect with, I think is the best way to grow in 2025.
Okay. How important is it to be open? Because a lot of times you hear is I'm just a country star, or I'm just a rap star, or I'm just a pop star. How do you keep opening yourself or finding new muses to help better your music?
Yeah, I think being open is very important because you may want to do certain things, but the truth is maybe you're not, the best at it, or maybe it's, not the lane that is really going to where you're going to find the most success. So I think it's a matter of, staying true to yourself and staying true to what the kind of music you want to make and the career you want to build for yourself, but also kind of testing things out and seeing, what works, what doesn't, and being honest with yourself about, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, will definitely help you grow in any facet of your career, whether it's the music or, the business aspect of it. I think, having a firm sense of identity is definitely important, but also being able to, look at what is performing well and what isn't, and really doubling down on what works and continuing to kind of take risks and step outside the box, I think is definitely important for sure.
Okay. Now, going back to network, who is your favorite person or artist that you've collaborated with so far in your career, and why?
Um, Favorite person or that's a tough question. I think honestly not fame, but some local artists that I worked with. I'm originally from Albany, so some local artists because they were the ones where the collaboration felt most genuine and felt it was, it was still early on, so I wasn't really thinking about it from a business perspective. It was more we were just having fun. I was kind of learning, and those were the sessions that I, really learned the most from, and really what made me fall in love with production and working with artists. So I would definitely say those are my favorite, the early sessions with some local Albany artists.
Now, when you are trying to teach new people things, first of all, when you see music engineering and you see the studios and all the buttons and the instruments, it can become overwhelming for someone first starting. What is your tips to help? Well, what do you do to help lessen the anxiety of music producing for artists who are starting out?
That's a great question. Um, in terms of like learning, I would say just take it step by step. There's, some things can seem very complicated when you're trying to, learn everything at once, like, learning the difference between compression and EQ and reverb and all these different things. I would kind of just, how I learned is to just kind of, absorb what you can, absorb as much as you can at the given time, and then learn one thing at a time. So maybe kind of train your ear to learn the different, how compression changes a sound or how slight changes in EQ. Don't try to take it on all at once. Focus on like, okay, what is the issue that I'm having with my sound at the moment, and what is the tool that can best address that issue, and then slowly over time you'll train your ear and you'll gain more knowledge and it'll become less intimidating and a little bit more just matter of fact.
Okay. If you can go back 10 years when you first started taking this seriously and making a career of yourself, what would you tell yourself then that you know now?
I would say just keep going, just keep making music. There's definitely been times in my career where things have gotten frustrating and, face obstacles and, I'm like, do I really want to continue doing this? But I would tell myself just, just have fun with it, keep going. there'll always be new opportunities, even if you want to take a step back for a little while. Just keep doing it for the love of it, and everything will kind of work itself out.
Kind of a separate but two-part question. What was your biggest obstacle in your career so far?
Hmm. Biggest obstacle, I would say, kind of making the transition from starting out as an artist to being a producer. So, definitely getting the money together to be able to record songs and drop videos and, promote myself on social media, pay for ads and promotion, like, while working a job, that can get really stressful and overwhelming. So that kind of hitting that roadblock and realizing like, okay, I need to figure out a way that I can make money doing this so I can continue to finance my passion. That was a big obstacle that kind of led me in the direction of wanting to, help artists with production.
And what has been the biggest highlight of your career so far?
Biggest highlight of my career. Um, just being able to, help artists level up their sound, get better, continue to hone their craft, and being able to grow my following so that I can continue to help people and share my knowledge. That's been super great for me and has been a really awesome goal that I've been able to achieve.
All right, last question. You go by the name Charles Marduk. Where did that name come from?
So Marduk was the name of the main god of like the first religion in Mesopotamia. So it kind of came, it was just kind of, I took a mythology class at one point just randomly, and that was a name that came up. So I thought it was really cool, and the Charles just kind of flowed with it. So it was kind of just a name I made up and ran with. And to be honest, at that time, I had like a couple different social media accounts that I was trying to grow, and that ended up being the one that kind of took off. So I just kind of went from there.
All right, thank you so much for being and stopping by the channel.
Sure, of course. Thanks for having me.
You can follow Charles at Charles Marduk underscore on Instagram and make sure to subscribe to his YouTube page. As always, you can follow me on Instagram at Tell Me All About It. And you can hear this interview on both YouTube and Spotify. Until next time, guys.
All right, take care.